Hey, this is Jake from Periphery, and you're watching SLCAudio.
What's up, everybody? It's Big Bryan here from SLCAudio. We're here with Jake from Periphery, and we're going to talk about their latest album, Hail Stan. And thanks for, first of all, coming out. It's always a pleasure to have you here in Salt Lake City.
Thank you.
And want to just jump right into this. With three guitar players, and when you're writing songs, when you're coming up with the parts, how hard is it for you guys to diversify who gets to play what, or is that pretty simple for you?
I think it comes pretty naturally to us at this point. We've spent a lot of time together in the studio, and I think a misconception is that we're firing on all cylinders at every minute, and really what happens is like somebody will have an idea, or they'll have a couple of ideas that are complementary to each other, and then they'll sit down and track those, and then another person will come in and kind of like continue the idea, and then another person will come in and continue the idea until we feel like the song is taking shape or it's done. And it's, you know, it's just kind of, we get into a rhythm where it's just, you know, we kind of feel it out, and we see if, you know, if I write something and I'm struggling to come up with what the next part is, and somebody else can step in and kind of see if they're inspired by it. So it's just this nice ebb and flow that we all have when it comes to writing with the three of us, the three guitar players. And then after we have something that takes shape, then Spencer, our singer, and Matt, our drummer, will come in and kind of offer their 2 cents, whether they have arrangement or melodic opinions about it. And it's just a nice way for the whole band to work together. And, you know, we really like the flow that we have.
Yeah, with that flow and with everybody having their own space, when you create your tones for recording, how much of that gets changed when it goes to mix? How much of it stays the same, and how do you make that compromise with who gets what space there?
Well, it's interesting. There's this thing that I don't know how many other bands do this, but we call it demoitis, where we like get really hooked on the way a demo sounds, and we try to like recreate whatever magic that was to get it sounding that way. But a lot of times, you know, we take a little bit more surgical approach when we're doing like the final recordings, and you know, we take a lot of care with you know, how we track and making sure that things sound a certain way. And a lot of times we'll have done it right the first time, so we'll take elements from the demo and just drop them into the final session. A good example of this is in Garden and the Bones. I wrote that clean passage and the bridge in the middle, and I retracked it for the album, but the demo one just had this like vibe to it, had a little bit of like imperfection to it, so we thought that would be cool, that would sound better than just retracking it and just trying to get it a little. The one that I tracked was a bit more sterile, so there's that. And then once we get to the end of the recording process, we take DIs for everything, which means we're taking just the dry signal of the guitar, so as well as running it through whatever amps we're using. So we have both, and if we're unhappy or we feel like we could do better, we'll run that dry signal through the amp again and record that with whatever we change to the amp, and that way we can do what's called reamping. And we actually did that for a lot of the songs. Towards the end of the thing, we were like, oh man, we should probably reamp some of this. So a lot of the recording process is also reamping and trying to figure out like, how can we get these guitar tones to sound better.
Right. I'm actually really glad you brought that up. I'm a college professor at the local university. Gage behind the camera is one of my students, and we talk a lot about reamping, and people are like, why would you record a dry signal of a guitar? And I'm really happy you brought that up because of that.
Yeah. It's a really simple process. It can be time consuming, especially if you're like, you have a bunch of great options and you're trying to pick the best one, because then really it's just a matter of, you know, where your head's at that moment in time. But yeah, I urge everyone who records themselves or records guitars often, always take a dry signal. You never know when you might need it.
Right, yeah, that's really good advice. Other thing that I was going to ask is, when you bring the show live, I know that you guys use Cubase to create your pedal switching in real time with your fractal audios. Can you describe that process a little bit, and and actually why you guys choose to do that?
Sure. So when we first started Periphery, me, Misha, and the other guitar player before Mark, we used to have these monster pedal boards, and we would get obsessive over what was in them, and we were really into that side of like building a live rig. And then as our live setup got more sophisticated, we decided to take a more automated approach, and we were already playing to a click, and we realized, hey, we could send MIDI messages through this on the grid as well. So why don't we try that? So that way, because we all play different parts. So like in one song, I could have anywhere between 10 to 12 patch changes, and then it kind of takes your head out of the immersion when you're like trying to like remember to change sounds and all these different parts you have to play. So it actually, I was open to it, but I was still sort of resistant to the fact that I'd kind of be on the rails, and I was open to trying it out though. And when I did try it out the first day, I was sold. Like I was just like, this is the way that I want to do this from now on. It takes a little bit more pre-production effort to kind of dial it in every tour, because every tour we try to play different stuff or at least add songs. So then if I don't have tones for those, or if I don't have MIDI tracks programmed, then I have to go through and do that. I spent a lot of time creating new tones. This tour in particular, we were playing 4 new songs. So, and one of them was 16 minutes long, so there's a lot of changes. So we obsessed over that for about a week. And but yeah, it's a really, really nice way to just worry about playing and not have to worry about a pedal board is essentially a separate rig, because you have your amp, your cab, whatever setup you got going on behind you. And then if you have this whole other set of things that can go wrong, and I just choose to have Cubase control it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, it's just easy through MIDI. And that makes it so you're not also tap dancing up on the front of the stage.
Yeah.
It gives you a little bit more freedom to be about in the song. That's really good. If you had any advice for people who are either becoming guitar players who want to do this, or for like audio engineers who want to get into this craft, what is some advice that you could give to somebody that's just starting out?
Try to befriend people who are into this stuff as well, and not because you're just trying to sap their knowledge, but because you generally want to have friends in that share the same passion for this stuff as you do. And that was always like my thing. Like I didn't know Misha growing up or anything like that. I just hit him up randomly online. I'm like, hey man, I really like your stuff. Like this is like a billion years ago, but I feel that like the only reason I've progressed and have gotten better is because I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded by people who I'm constantly learning from. And it's definitely shaped me into the musician that I am today. So I'd say, try to meet people who share the same passion, and don't be competitive, and just learn, and and have an open mind.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to the show tonight. If you guys haven't checked out Hell Stand, make sure you go check it out now. It's a really amazing album. You can tell that you guys put a lot of time and effort into creating and crafting what we hear sonically on that record, and it's really good. So again, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see you guys next time. Big Bryan from SLCAudio.